Welcome, everyone. My name is Dan Ryder. I'm the Vice President General Manager of the Springfield Cardinals, and we are very excited today to have the final selection show of the Springfield Cardinals 15-year team presented by Mercy. This entire undertaking has been absolutely amazing. We've been interacting with our fans since September, going through memory lane and coming up with these great names. But today has been something we've been extremely excited to have, and that is a roundtable of all of the broadcasters in Springfield Cardinals history. So collectively, these three gentlemen have watched every single game. They've seen all the talent, the guys that have succeeded here in the big leagues. And the three people I'm very excited to be able to call my friends. And so today we get to go through memory lane with all of our broadcasters. So I first of all want to apologize that I'm the least professional and the person hosting. So we have three experts and an amateur that's doing this. But first of all, I want to welcome Mike Lindskog, our very first broadcaster, Jeff Levering, our second guy, and Andrew Buchbinder, our current broadcaster of the Springfield Cardinals. Very excited to have story time with you guys. But I think, first of all, you guys have helped paint the picture of Springfield Cardinals baseball. You have been the voice that's brought memories to people. And you guys collectively have meant so much to this organization. I think before we jump into the players, I think people would love to know kind of what's going on with you. And so, Mike, if you wouldn't mind, if you kind of share with everyone what's gone on since you were here in Springfield, here from 2005 to 2009, but kind of fill us in on life a little bit for you.
You bet, Dan. Obviously, it's just awesome to be back in front of some Springfield eyes here. Missed everyone, you guys, Jeff and Andrew. We've been able to forge some neat relationships post Mike Lindskog tenure in Springfield. I love this Brady Bunch format here. I'm obviously the oldest child. I think that makes me Greg Brady, Jeff, Peter, Andrew, Bobby, if memory serves correctly.
So am I dad then? Am I dad now? Like, what am I?
Yeah. I mean, that's where we're at. The beard gives it away. You said least professional. I mean, obviously we knew that with the beard giving it right away. So after I left Springfield, I went to Rancho, Cucamonga, California, which Jeff has some history with as well. And I have been here in Rancho, Cucamonga. They are a Dodgers California League affiliate, which has been some very exciting times for us with the Dodgers, of course, recently winning the World Series. And we've seen a number of our guys, the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, go on to play big roles for the Dodgers. And I've been in Southern California for now, since I left Springfield was 2009. So that makes it 11 years if math serves me correctly. So I got a little guy, which I didn't have in my tenure in Springfield. He's in first grade doing school virtually, which is awesome. And by awesome, I mean not awesome. And I have a beautiful wife as well. So we're a family of three living in Southern California and just doing our quarantine thing, getting real accustomed to these earbuds.
Yeah, and Mike, I'll point out, being around your family might be the most high energy family in history because both your wife and your child might have more energy than you. And I think that's always been a part of your signature is the energy that you brought to a room, the energy that you helped start the franchise with, and your household might have more energy than what you do, which also makes anytime I've got to be around, whether it's Landry or Ashley, just love them so much because they're just so fun to be around. So
yeah, we blew the roof off this place in 2011, and we never did replace it. So we've gone roofless just because the energy just can't be contained. But yes, I have a high energy household, and funny enough, as you get older, you get less energy is what I've learned, which is very odd. And with a 6-year-old high energy and a wife high energy, I'm clearly running third on that list now, which is not great.
Well, we know you can still put us to shame. And then from our time with Mike Lindskog, that transitioned us to our next 3 years of Springfield Cardinals history with Jeff Levering. Jeff, you kind of came on board when Mike was leaving, and we had some great players, some great teams that were through here. Some very fun memories with you as well, and been very fun for me to watch what's been able to happen with you, with your career, with your family. So if you wouldn't mind, for those that don't already follow the famous Jeff Levering on social media, if you don't mind filling everyone in, we'd love to kind of hear about what's happened with you since you left Springfield.
Yikes, not so famous, but like Mike said, when he left Springfield, went to Rancho Cucamonga. I went from Rancho Cucamonga to Springfield. I'm still waiting for that dozen baseballs that I was supposed to get as part of the trade.
Sorry, I held on to them.
That's okay. Appreciate that. Just make sure the Cal League balls are on their way. It was a great 3 years in Springfield. Of course, the one Texas League championship came in my last year there, 2012. And we saw so many great players come through, guys that helped the Cardinals win the World Series in 2011, and some that went and helped out in 2013 against the Boston Red Sox too. But I had 3 great, phenomenal years in Springfield, moved on to the Pawtucket Red Sox and the Red Sox organization. So I left one organization which had won a World Series within 2 years and went to another one that won the World Series that year, which was pretty great. And spent 2 years in Pawtucket, Rhode Island before moving on to the Milwaukee Brewers, which is where I am now. So I'm going into my 7th season with the Milwaukee Brewers. I get to work with Bob Uecker on a day in and day out basis, which is insane still to this day that I say that. The stories go on and on and on forever. But he treats me great. He treats me like a grandson, because I can't say he treats me like a son because he's 60 years older than I am. But he's amazing. And the community here in Milwaukee is great. I call national basketball games on Big Ten Network and an FS1 for college hoops, and have done some national games on television too. Did a couple of games for the Brewers on their local network too. So it's really been a great run. My wife and I have ingrained ourselves in Milwaukee. We have 2 great kids. One is 6. October 1st is when he turned 6, and then we have another who's about to turn 3 2 days after Christmas. So we've planned perfectly, because after the baseball season is when our kids were born. So we tried to plan it as best we could. So everything is great. And life has been good, and still have our roots in Springfield, of course. This is a courtesy of Kent Shelton and his wonderful InDesign and Photoshop skills with me in the Louis suit. So it's never far from me.
And the gnome. I mean, the gnome, they travel. I mean, it's kind of what you have to have the gnome back there as well.
Yeah, funny story about the gnome. My first year in Pawtucket, the apartment that I was renting got robbed and ransacked, and everything was stolen from my house, TVs, old beta tapes and stuff. But the gnome was the only thing that wasn't stolen. So I figured this would be a nice piece and a nice conversation to talk about. But the gnome still exists.
I couldn't bring myself to take it from you, Jeff. I left that there for you.
Yeah, it was actually on the front. It was on the front door. Everything else was scattered around.
Yeah, well, that's where I left it.
It's actually in the mail. When I get my baseballs, I'm going to send you the gnome.
God, I thought that was changed from a dozen baseballs to a bag of Oreos. I can't remember which one the trade happened on that, but Jeff,
Mike got the Oreos.
He got the Oreos. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, Jeff, it was a fun time when you were here, and just the group of players we had, the championships, and honestly, I think all of us as the Springfield Cardinals collectively, and the community, it's been awesome to watch your career. To see you as a big league broadcaster. Some of us have gotten the opportunity when you've been in St. Louis to swing by and say hello. But it's fun to see you just go, and not just with baseball, but like you mentioned, the basketball too. So very happy for what's happened with Mike, very happy what's happened with Jeff. And that brings us to our own Andrew Buchbinder, who we don't want him to get lost in the shuffle. And, he's been the host up until this point. Andrew has been with us since 2013, and Andrew, I want to make sure you have your open time as well. We're not going to leave you out and assume people know what's going on. So, anything that you've got to let everyone know about, we want to hear from you, Andrew.
I'm in the home clubhouse right now at Hammondsfield. I've been here since March. I'm waiting for baseball. So, opening
Did Dan
day.
lock you in there?
Wait for.
There's a shower in there. He's fine.
There's a shower. Yeah, everything's good. Everything's good. No, I mean, it's been awesome to follow these two guys. Obviously, Dan, you mentioned it, but the legacy that Lindskog set up, and then Jeff coming in for those 3 years, it's been a lot of fun to follow those two, and it's certainly an honor to follow these guys. And I've been looking forward to this Zoom because it's always fun to catch up individually, but to have everybody as a group is something that I've had on my calendar, looking forward to for a long time. So. It's just exciting. It's been a great fit, I think, for all of us in our times here, which speaks, I think, a lot to the organization and the family that we have here in the Springfield Cardinals front office. And that's something that I know that Megan and I have really loved being a part of this community and a part of this team. On the personal side, Jeff mentioned how he and Ashley were able to plan their family so well. Megan and I, a little bit different. We're excited to have just announced that we're expecting our first baby in May. So just in time for a baseball season will be my first venture into parenthood. So I will be expecting life advice from the three of you guys for the next 18 years at least. But we're really excited, and we're really excited just to keep growing here and growing in the community.
So is this my tryout? So is this my tryout then? That if since you're gonna have a baby in May, that baseball hopefully being played there, that I can go on the road and be the broadcaster. Is this my official tryout?
You've got Midland, Texas written all over you.
I already see Jeff like bad move, like find a different. All right, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I think you'd be just fine. But I think Midland's a good start for you. I think that'd be really nice. And tumbleweeds and yeah,
beautiful sunsets.
Having never done it, everything's going to be new and exciting. And so we'll see how I feel after a possible road trip or two. And then I'm calling Andrew like, I don't care if the kids still want you home. I don't care. You're getting back on the road. Well, we'll see what happens. But Andrew, we're very excited to hear that news for you. And I'm sure Jeff, Mike, and myself, whatever questions you have, we will do whatever we can to help. Since you work with me, I'm not short on opinions or advice. So anytime you need it, I will be there. So Jeff, you're remembering that as well too. Is there strong?
Yes. The Wildcat is strong with advice.
Yeah, I try to absorb and pass it on. So thank you guys. I think just for all of our fans that have been paying attention to the 15-year team by Mercy, just thank you for filling us in with what's going on with you. And, we sent over the list of what the original ballot looked like. You saw who the fans were able to select, and then also what we filled in with the experts. So when you guys took at it, before we move on to some of your selections, just kind of curious what you've thought about it so far. Any names that maybe stood out to you or guys you're excited to see on how our fans and experts have selected it so far. So, we started with the first one, Mike, last time, so you're our first guy. So we're going to skip it. We're going to go to Jeff to kick this one off. Jeff, is there anything you've noticed about the 15-year team that maybe jumped out to you?
Well, I saw a lot of guys from the tenure that I was there, from 2010 to 2012. I think that was kind of the highlighted draft class from 2008, 2009 that finally made their way to the Texas League. And there were a lot of great names. Matt Carpenter, of course, some of the great pitching. Some of it wasn't even on there, which I was surprised about because they didn't spend a lot of time in Springfield. They kind of went straight to St. Louis and Memphis from there. But for me, it's kind of nostalgia going back and seeing a name like Oscar Taveras and the great career that he had in Springfield, his MVP season in 2012, his road to the big leagues, and of course the tragedy with his death too a couple of years later. It's fun to go back and look and see at the monster years that some of those guys had in Springfield. Oscar one, Matt Adams another, Matt Carpenter in 2010 before that. And guys that really helped out the St. Louis Cardinals on their way to greatness in AA and in the big leagues. So it's been really fun. And even the era of guys that I remember putting in the media guide from Mike's, and then thinking ahead to what Andrew was going to have in 2013 and that team, and all the great talent that's come through since that I've had a chance to see in St. Louis, the Jack Flaherty's of the world and Harrison Bader and those types of players that have come through Springfield. It's just amazing. The organization has turned this many players out over the last 15 years.
And Andrew, what is that final count? Where are we at right now with guys that have contributed in the big leagues?
Oh, gosh. I think we're at 114 to get up to St. Louis, and I think we're somewhere in the 150 area in terms of total guys to get to the major leagues. And
to average 10 per year is just absolutely amazing as an organization, able to find and develop that kind of talent. And Jeff, you bring up a very interesting point. Probably the hardest part about creating this 15-year team, presented by Mercy, was the ballot. And it was the discussions that our staff was having on, how do you look at a great season here versus a guy who contributed a lot in the big leagues, and how do you try to balance the story of our franchise with, the success in the big leagues. And it was a very difficult ballot to come up with. And trust me, we felt that every single position, there was a guy or two that we were just like, oh, how do you leave him off? And it was tough. It was a very tough thing to do. But I do appreciate all the work our staff did on that. The debates, and also all of us recovering from the debates with our feelings were hurt. So really appreciate
debates,
that.
Right? The baseball debates.
Oh, yeah, those two. Yeah,
okay.
baseball debates. But Mike, how about you? What did you notice whenever you looked at the 15-year team? Any players or anything jump out to you when you've seen the guys that have been selected so far?
Well, as you so eloquently pointed out, I'm the oldest guy here. I was the first guy here. I had 5 years in Springfield, which, personally, when I took that job, the Springfield Cardinals had not yet played a game. And so the memories I have of Springfield, working from, the grassroots standpoint and just getting her going in that first year in 2005 are so very special to me and near and dear. Dan, you can relate to exactly what I'm saying, as you too were hired there in, I think probably December of 04, I want to say, and I was brought on in February of 05. And boy, we were just running and gunning, trying to get to the startup line, and then just incredible memories. So looking at that, that initial list certainly just brought all the memories back. I can't stay with Jeff and Andrew in regards to, some of the Springfield Cardinals that found their way into Springfield in 2015 and 2017. Those guys, aren't on my radar, as I'm all the way out here in California keeping track of, Cody Bellinger and Corey Seager in my little Dodger world that I live in currently. But man, what a cool trip down memory lane. I see Randy Leake's name on there, which was a guy that you're like, oh yeah, that guy was awesome in 2005. Did he ever make it? And a little bit of a slow throwing lefty that, fit the bill of crafty. And gosh, he led the team in complete games that year. And he was just awesome. So that was neat to see. I thought of other guys that maybe weren't necessarily name brand on a national basis. Juan Diaz, who at one point hit like the longest home run I had ever seen at that point. I think it went 600 feet, easy, maybe 700 feet if those metrics were correct back in the day. He was an absolute beast of a man. I remember shaking his hand for the first time, and I was just blown away by the muscles in his fingers and just the overall girth of that man, as I'm sure fans that saw games in my tenure can attest to.
Just to paint the picture a little bit there, Mike, I was standing at the door of the clubhouse whenever he showed up and got out of the cab, and my eyes just like, what is this NFL offensive lineman in our AA baseball team? Like
immediately, I thought the Incredible Hulk. Really,
I just wanted to call him sir every time I talked to him. He was huge. So. Sorry, just
don't disrespect that man.
NFL offensive lineman, yes,
no
huge.
doubt. He was unlike any ball player I had ever seen to that moment. But then, some of the name brand guys that I saw on that list that played there during my tenure, Josh Kinney, of course, which was our first Springfield Cardinal to go on and crack the big leagues, and of course he was so instrumental in getting the Cardinals to the World Series, and what he did for the Cardinals during their World Series run. Was just so amazing back then, and Josh has of course gone on to do some neat things in the Springfield community as a kind of an ambassador, and just a great guy. So that was neat. Jason Mott's story is so unlike almost any other ball player. He was a catcher with little upside as far as offensive ability, but great behind the plate, and certainly a great throwing arm, it turns out. And to watch him develop from catcher to all-star World Series clinching closer was so special to me. And Jason, back then, I would very much consider him a friend. So seeing his name on that list, brought some neat memories up. Thinking of guys like Colby Rasmus and Reed Gorecki and Joe Mather, who were some neat outfield prospects who all went on to play in the big leagues. Just seeing those guys and seeing their names on paper and thinking about the opportunity to say their names while I'm on camera is really neat. And those guys they hold special places in my heart.
Yeah. And Mike, if you're going to be the old guy A on this call, I will be old guy B, because when we were putting together the ballot, that was the role I found myself discussing with our staff is like, hey, you guys understand in 2005, Reed Gorecki was the first poster child we had for this organization. 40-man roster. And when he came here, it was a big deal to have the team, but he was the player that personified this potential. And so it was, I was old guy B, really explaining some of those names and what they meant when the organization started. Because the farm system definitely had transitioned where it was ranked. When we started, it wasn't ranked very highly and is really really started churning out these guys that contributed at big league level. But there's still historical significance to all of those names you mentioned. And again, one more thing, Jason Mott, he did convert from a catcher to pitcher. Sorry, automatic timers. I got to move more here. It's still not one to pick me up, so let's start waving. There we go. But Jason Mott, he could crush in pitchers batting practice. So whenever the pitchers would go take BP, he could put on a show among the pitchers. So we can give him credit there for his offensive prowess. So, see, that's my audition again to fill in for Andrews. You just got to keep it going regardless of the situation. So
don't miss a beat, baby.
We'll figure it away. Right. None at all.
Just make sure you pause for commercials. That's it.
Yes.
This would never happen in 2019. Those lights going out, that would never happen.
Never.
Again, and Andrew, we'll kind of go, you kind of have a different perspective for the guys that have been selected so far for the Mercy 15-year team. You helped create the ballot. You've been tabulating the votes that have been coming in online. You've been the host filling in with the different experts coming in. So, what's your take on the 15-year team so far, knowing it's a little bit different perspective from Jeff and Mike and myself?
Well, I think it's just that I think I've been able to really appreciate the totality of the history and hearing the stories from whether it be you during our ballot debates, or our experts who come in, having Ned Reynolds and Chad Pline, Dan Lucy, Scott Bales come in and tell stories about these guys that maybe came through before I was here. But then also, in doing some research to get ammo for those ballot debates, starting to look back at stat lines and look back at box scores and then be reminded of some of these great performances and great stories and great personalities. It's been a lot of fun to kind of take that walk down memory lane and think about, some of the guys that certainly put up incredible numbers while they were in Springfield and went on to the big leagues and have had great careers, but also those guys that were on the team that maybe didn't get to the major leagues, but played such a huge part of the Springfield teams and of the St. Louis organization while they were playing, and to think about all those people and all those personalities has been a lot of fun. I also, one thing when looking back through this, I know this is something that everybody on this call can certainly attest to, is thinking about the different field staffs as well, and those guys who, in a lot of respects, as the broadcaster, a lot of times you develop maybe a deeper relationship with the coaching staff than you do with the players a lot of the time. To go back, and I know Jeff and I both overlap with Schulte, and to see where he is now, of course, in St. Louis, and Pop Warner is on that staff, the third base coach. We've got Jobel Jimenez, who's an assistant hitting coach, who's a hitting coach here. And then also, I think sometimes maybe the overlooked side, but such a critical part of it all, is the medical side. And Lance Thomason is currently the head strength coach. He was a strength and conditioning coach here in Springfield for 3 years. So, to look back and think about those guys that have helped craft all of this and guide all of this when it comes to the on-field product here, it's been a lot of fun to reflect on and go down memory lane on that side too.
And Andrew, you bring up a really good point that I think anyone who's involved with sports can relate to, is that it's not always the starters, it's not always the guys that make it, but it's the guys that push you day in and day out. And I think whatever sport you're talking about, sometimes those practice squad guys or those guys that can help push you, they're important to the development of the stars. Not everyone can get to the big leagues like Matt Carpenter, but all of his teammates help make Matt Carpenter the player he is today. And I think that's a really interesting concept, as we design this team. Reflects on the history, the significance of individual seasons, of long career here versus long career in the big leagues. All of it goes to make other people better, and I think that's a part that you guys as the broadcasters got to experience on the buses. To see what it's like for them to be a team, to see those relationships. The stories that you guys can tell are unbelievable, because you've got to see the way that those people develop. Some you can share with company and online, and others you cannot. Like, it's got to stay up here forever. And that's what makes baseball great. You got a little bit of both. But thank you to all three of you guys kind of talking about the team so far. But we also, when we were coming up with the design of how to select the 15-year team presented by Mercy, we did think it was very important. We wanted the fans to absolutely to kind of be the anchor that really started it. We wanted our experts to have a say. But also it's our broadcasters. Like we mentioned earlier, that you guys have seen everyone come through here. And when we started, we designed our pitching staff where we wanted the fan vote, an expert vote, but we actually wanted to leave 2 spots for each one of you to pick for a pitcher. And again, it can be, especially since you guys kind of have the eye test and have seen them, each one of you as a Springfield Cardinals broadcaster are going to be able to pick 2 pitchers to go on to the 15-year team presented by Mercy. So, Mike, you kind of got us through those early years. Let's hear about the 2 selections you're making at the pitcher spot.
Wow, I got us through the early years. That's pretty great.
You set the foundation, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, I'm an amateur host. I'm doing the best I can. All right.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
I think you're crushing it. So, for the most part, I think the fans nailed it. I mean, I obviously haven't been able to see firsthand, all the Springfield Cardinals that have come through Hammons Field, in the last 10 years per se, but I know who's important. I know who's had a great career, at the MLB level. I know who was great for the system in the at the MILB level. But for me, my tenure, obviously that's what I have to comment on. So I got a 5-year window, 2005, that inaugural season, all the way through 2009. So 5 seasons worth of Cardinal baseball, because I had to select somebody that the fans didn't select. I was a little bit handcuffed here. Jason Mott was the first one that jumped off the page just because I covered him. He was so great. Watching him develop was just such a blessing to watch and see him, win a World Series. Just, it did it for me for sure. But I'm not allowed to give that as my official pick. So I'm going to dive a little deeper here. The first one that I'm going to go with is Chris Perez. Chris was out of the University of Miami. He was a high-profile closer type. And while we had some high-profile pitchers that had kind of made their way up through the Cardinal system, he was really a guy that, there was no anybody trying to convince anybody that he was ever going to be a starter. He was a closer. He was a flamethrower. He came from the U, and that was it. Like, this is our guy going forward. He was immediately placed into that closer's role in Springfield. Had a lot of success. He was an exciting player to watch. Of course, he would go on to become an all-star, reliever with St. Louis, and obviously Cleveland was where he really kind of made his major league niche. Ironically, he came out west here, and one of the last stops in his career was for the Dodgers, and with us only being 40 minutes away, he actually rehabbed in Rancho Cucamonga, so we got to connect and talk here several years ago, which was neat. But Chris Perez, for me, was such a high-profile, proven closer coming out of college, and he did it at the Texas League level, and obviously he had some great success at the Major League level. So that's going to be my first Mike Lindskog approved pitcher for the 15-year team presented by Mercy.
That's a great selection there, Mike. So Chris Perez, a little trivia, our first ever Springfield Cardinal that became an MLB All-Star. I think it's a great selection, a great addition to our team. Jeff, how about you? How about the first pitcher that you would like to add from your tenure here?
I had a lot of great pitchers, not a ton of great closers when I was in town. A handful of guys that could get those last 3 outs, but starting pitching was unbelievable, especially in 2012. But I'm going to go to 2011, which is probably the most chocked full of talent that we had, yet had the worst record of my 3 years that I was here. But one guy who did not have a bad record and was the ace of that staff in the second half after he debuted in June was Shelby Miller. So Shelby Miller made his debut June 3rd, and I'll never forget it. It was against the Corpus Christi Hooks in Corpus Christi, and the 2, 3, 4 hitters are all big leaguers now and proven ones too. Jonathan VR was hitting second. Hitting third was Jose Altuve, and hitting fourth was JD Martinez. So he goes down to Corpus Christi, and he just deals. So he goes 6 innings that day, gives up no runs, 7 hits, strikes out 5, also has an RBI double in the ball game, ends up winning his Texas League debut 3-1, would end up going 9-3 that year, never gave up more than 3 runs one time, that was it. Just fully dominant. And the thing that really separated what he accomplished, because he was still a young kid, a high school pick a couple of years prior, was the fact that he did it with one pitch. Like he had a breaking ball, he had a changeup, but they were show pitches. He was throwing fastballs at these guys and getting the job done, and wins 9 games in the span of 2.5 months. He was special. And if injuries hadn't really got to him, and some off-field stuff too, once he got to the big leagues, who knows where his career could have gone. But Shelby Miller is on my list. He's my
It's a great pick, and I think you mentioned something specific, his fastball.
Just his fastball. Did all that with his fastball. No curveball, no changeup, only a fastball.
And I think the story behind that was that Tony La Russa had said that if any pitching coach ever tries to change your fastball or tells you to throw a two-seamer, tell them to call me, and I'm going to tell them don't touch this guy's pitch. As I think, Hall of Fame manager Tony La Russa, he felt the exact same way that Shelby Miller's fastball was just no pitching coach should change that. So,
yeah.
And Andrew, how about you? Who's going to be, you from the 2013 season through last season, you've witnessed a lot of our pitchers that have come through here. Who's going to be your first pitcher selection?
Yeah, so my first pitcher pick is going to be Luke Weaver, who was a first-round pick out of Florida State. He was part of our 2016 playoff team. He joined us in June. And Luke was one of my favorite pitchers to watch because he was of slight build, which I always appreciate the skinny guys. But he just dominated, and he dominated from the get-go. He joined us in Frisco. And the 2016 team was one of our most stacked, really, in the recent couple of years. We had Luke Voigt, Harrison Bader, Paul DeYoung. I mean, the list went on and on. Carson Kelly was on that team too. But we were in Texas on a Midland Frisco trip, and they were 1-4 on that road trip. And this was in June, so the first half was wrapping up. The Cardinals and Drillers were kind of neck and neck for the first half title. And Luke Weaver joined us on the weekend, that last weekend of the trip, and he made his debut on a Sunday night, June 5th in Frisco, and went out there and snapped a 3-game losing streak. He threw 7 1/3 scoreless innings. He gave up 5 hits, didn't walk a guy, struck out 10. Needed only like 87 pitches to get through the 7 1/3 innings. I mean, it was a complete dominant performance for his debut. Turned around that entire trip. It ended it on a win. And then they went on to go 11-3 to close out the first half and win the first half title. Now, history has robbed Luke Weaver of a lot of the credit because we also that night, after his dominant performance, watched a comedy with Robert De Niro and Zachary Efron. It's a grandpa movie. Where Robert De Niro is the grandpa, and I won't go too deep into the plot line in case anybody hasn't seen it out there, but that movie was credited for turning around the first half of our season. That became the rallying cry. You saw the thumbs up move that Luke Voigt was doing in the home run derby. That was all from that movie. So the grandpa movie got a lot of the credit, but Luke Weaver, I would contend, deserves a lot of the credit for the first half turnaround and the first half title. He then went on to make one start in Memphis in late August. He was a September call-up that year and is now in the Diamondbacks organization in that Paul Goldschmidt trade. But he's been slowed down a little bit with some injuries, but he was absolutely dominant in his time in Springfield and still, I think, has a great big league career ahead of him.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'm going to speak for Mike. I'm just glad you got to watch a comedy.
So, and I think the reason that listening in Springfield Cardinals lore, at the time that he was a coach here, we had a coach who had a lot of say, who would not allow comedies on the buses. So that is a very good point, Jeff, that I think former Springfield Cardinals would agree with.
I love / hate the fact that you know that, remember that, and went there. I love and hate all.
Come on, man.
All in the same breath.
Yep.
So, and thank you guys for your first pitcher selections. Mike, you really did bring up a great point, a first ever closer that was a prospect just as a closer. Jeff and Andrew, you guys, I'll say too, from being here the entire duration, the eye test, those two guys were different, and they picked at a different speed at a different level. That you just knew that they were special when they were here. And so thank you for all of you for your first selection. But because you guys have got to see so many, it's time to move into your second pitcher selection. We're going to go in reverse order. It's going to be like a fantasy draft. You go the serpentine direction. So Andrew, let's kick it off and hear your second pitcher selection.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna steal one from partial Jeff Levering era. Because 2012 was a big year for him, and then he was with us in 2013. So I'm not totally breaking the rules, but I'm going to go with Carlos Martinez, who was obviously a huge prospect coming in as he was 20, I think, in 2012. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, he was just a baby when he got here, and especially back then. It's amazing how quickly the ages have all trended a little bit younger throughout baseball, but especially throughout the minors, where 20 years old now is maybe not as unheard of, but just 8 years ago that was really, really, really young. In 2012, he was obviously a part of that championship team that Jeff got to call. He went 4-3, 2.9 ERA, and 15 starts as a 20-year-old in the Texas League. 2013, he then started the year with us, made 3 appearances in April just to sort of get back up to speed. Obviously did really well. He gave up 3 runs in those 3 outings combined, and then was called up straight from Springfield, actually the Northwest Arkansas hotel lobby, right to the big leagues. And as we all know, hasn't really looked back. And going through this, I think really when you look at the full body of work, certainly Jack Flaherty's on a great pace right now, but from a full body of work in the big leagues, he and Lance Lynn are really they've kind of separated themselves from a volume standpoint when it comes to our alumni. So I'm going to steal one away from Jeff. Hopefully that wasn't going to be your pick for your second pick, but I'm going to go with Carlos Martinez.
Well, I was trying to give you the support and let you go first there, Andrew, just in case.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, trying to support you. Got to support you now with the Cardinals. So anyway, a great selection. I think a guy, when you look at our history, he's got to be on there. So I'm really glad you selected him. That would have been a really bad snub. So he deserves it. Filthy pitches, great part of our history. So, and Jeff, how about you? Who's going to be your second pitcher selection?
Not Carlos Martinez, because Andrew picked him. So we didn't want to double up on stories. And I'm going to go off the grid, and a guy that never got to the big leagues, but a guy who had an amazing season in 2010 at the beginning part of the season until he had Tommy John surgery, and then came back for a triumphant 2012. But Scott Gorgan, he came up a little bit in 2009 and made a couple of good starts in Mike's tenure. So we're kind of interlocking all of us, which is kind of nice. But Scott Gorgan was an all-star in 2010. Blows out his elbow, not a big guy, like 5'10", maybe 180 pounds, soaking wet, but just a fierce competitor. And for what he went through and where he was in his trajectory in 2010 before his arm injury, missing all of 2011 or better chunks of it, and then coming back in 2012, had an okay year, 5 wins, 7 losses, an ERA just over 4, kind of bounced back and forth between the bullpen and a starting rotation, up to Memphis, back down to Springfield. But he's on my list really for one reason. He was the guy that got the start in the clinching game in the Texas League Championship in Game 4. And he got a loss in Game 4 against Tulsa with an opportunity in the division series to clinch. That ends up going to Game 5. And the Cardinals ended up winning in Game 5 to advance to the championship round. But he gets the ball in Game 4 against Frisco and kind of had a bad taste in his mouth after his previous failure in the division series. And I don't think Mike Schilt knew what he was going to get out of Scott Gorgan. Maybe 3 and then go to the bullpen. Michael Wacha was going to be potentially available that day out of the bullpen to pitch his 1 inning because he was just drafted that year, and then maybe figure it out from there. And if you're down, then you save somebody for Game 5. But Scott went out there. He took the ball, got out of a jam in the first inning, and then got out of another jam in the second where it was second and third with nobody out. Doesn't give up a run. But he went 6 innings, no runs, 4 hits, 7 strikeouts, and 2 walks in that clincher. And he deserved it. And just a guy that, again, under the radar, speaks perfectly to what the Springfield Cardinals are all about. And the development of the organization. While he didn't get to the big leagues and really never had a good year after 2012 either. 2013, he was terrible. Then he pitched in the independent leagues. He was just never the same guy. And for those reasons, and because he clinched the only championship in franchise history, that's why he gets my spot.
That's a great pick and a great reason, Jeff. And Scott was a great person. I think all of us that got to be around him we always wished him success because he was just a great person to talk to. And you guys know some of the players when they come through here, they're focused. If you're not in the baseball world, they don't want to talk to you. Me, I was, the front office sales guy, but I'll say Scott Gorgan, was always, it wasn't just a pleasantry. He wanted to know how your day was. And I feel like he always treated people amazing. And I'll agree. I think for all of us that were around in 2012, to know that he was the guy that got that big game and won it for our history, all of us were so happy for him. So I think a great selection for the history of our organization to be on the 15-year team presented by Mercy. And so, Mike, you get to bring us home here. It's you get the last pitcher selection for the 15-year team. So let's make it count. Who's going to be our last guy on the squad?
Wow, big drum roll there. Well, to echo what Jeff just said, I had the opportunity to cross paths with Scott Gorgan very briefly in 2009, my final year in Springfield. But echoing what both you, Dan, and Jeff are saying, just a terrific young guy. And when they ask you about your day, it definitely sets them apart. And that's unfortunate in the big grand scheme of things that more guys don't do that, but it definitely makes you remember what an outstanding young man he was. And it's neat that he's getting a little run here during this segment. So very cool. Similarly, in what Jeff just echoed about Scott Gorgan, a guy that did not ever have any big league experience, a guy whose career, unfortunately, in affiliated ball flamed out just 2 years after he was so big and strong for the Springfield Cardinals, is a guy by the name of Trey Hearn. Trey pitched for the Springfield Cardinals in 2009. We made it to the playoffs in 2007 and all the way to the Texas League Championship Series against San Antonio, where they would fall to the Missions. But we didn't have a lot of playoff experience except for the 1 year through the first 4 years. And in 2009, the Cardinals and the Tulsa Drillers were running neck and neck in the first half, and it was certainly a game and a situation that I soon won't forget. The Cardinals and the Drillers tied for the first half, Texas League North, and it had to come down to a playoff. And of course, with minor league baseball rules, it doesn't work like the big leagues. Minor league baseball is broken up into 2 seasons, as we all know, and so you got the first half champ, you got the second half champ. Well, you can't just add another game mid-season to your schedule to break a first half tie. So the first meeting between the Cardinals and the Drillers in the second half would then go on to decide who won the first half. So while the South had a champ, for a couple of days, the North couldn't figure it out until the Cardinals and the Drillers met coming out of the All-Star break. We were able to set our rotation. Trey Hearn was a guy that had a terrific first half. And manager Pop Warner was able to depend on him in what essentially was a one-game playoff, although it counted towards the second half standings of the regular season. Trey Hearn was a 2009 Texas League postseason All-Star. But man, if he didn't get that accolade, the one thing he did in that one playoff game, he not only pitched the Cardinals to victory, but he pulled off the most amazing play in baseball, and I think we'll all agree, the inside the park home run. And again, repeat, he's a pitcher. He's a pitcher, and he hit an inside the park home run in a winner-take-all, go-to-the-postseason playoff game at Driller Stadium in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it was the greatest moment, arguably, in our franchise's history in that very moment, as when he scratched across home plate. You knew we were going to win. It was mid-game. He ended up going 6 innings. Wasn't a strikeout guy. He literally, I just pulled the numbers here a little while ago. He struck out 1 guy in that game to get the win over 6 innings. And that really told the story of Trey Hearn. He found every other way to compete, and including with his bat. He was a terrific athlete. And again, while 2009 was the greatest professional year, his career in affiliated ball would end after the 2010 season. So he didn't last, and he obviously never made it to the major leagues. Tell the story of the Springfield Cardinals in the first 5 years, as far as I'm concerned, without acknowledging what a season Trey Hearn had in 2009, what he did in that very one game. And again, this is not just about one game. As like I mentioned, he was a Texas League All-Star in 2009. His numbers 12-3, 2.82 ERA, which those are great. But he only had 81 strikeouts in 127 double-A innings. And obviously that's not going to open many eyes. But the kid was a competitor. He was a grinder. And when he slid across home plate, with that inside the park home run. At that moment, we knew we were going to win. We knew we were going to the postseason. Tickets were going to go on sale the next day, so Dan was excited. And it was such a special moment, and it's been neat getting to relive that a little bit here.
Honestly, just neat just getting to relive all of this with you guys and to hear your stories and your reasons behind it. Like, I'm getting pumped for these selections. So
yeah.
So that does conclude our pitching staff. So thank you guys for helping to complete the pitching staff. We knew that our broadcasters would be the guys that could really bring it together and not just pick stats, but tell us why. And I think every one of your selections, you told us why, and I think we appreciate that. Thanks for rounding out the pitching staff for the Cardinals 15-year team presented by Mercy. But with that, we also wanted to leave a spot for each one of you guys to pick a final DH and utility player. You saw the way the fans voted. You see what the expert picks are. But sometimes there's guys that maybe don't fit into the perfect little box, but you know that if you're putting together a team that tells our history, that tells about our players, that we just probably need a little bit more of a chance to have that DH utility spot. So each one of you is going to be able to add one player there. And so in the fantasy draft format, Mike, I believe this means that you are up to give us your final selection at the DH utility spot.
Man, I just gave you such a long-winded answer about Trey Hearn, and now you're calling my number again. So selfishly, this is such an easy one for me. In 2007, a guy came on the scene, a third-round pick out of high school in Sandpoint, Idaho. I had a chance to sit next to him during our Cardinals spring training trip down to Jupiter, Florida, and Palm Beach and whatever. And his name was Joe Mather. And I didn't know anything about Joe Mather when I met him on that night in 2007. Ironically, that same night, I met my wife. So it's a little weird how that all worked out. Joe sat next to me while I interacted for the very first moments with my wife. So as you can imagine, it was a memorable dinner as I sat there at Shula's Steakhouse in Palm Beach, Florida. Ironically, Joe would go on to, after his playing career, would go on to do some managing, and he was a manager in the Diamondbacks system, and he actually was the skipper of the Visalia Rawhide, which is the team that I work for. The Rancho Cucamonga Quakes beat in the California League Championship Series here just two short seasons ago. In 2018. So our paths have crossed many a time. Joe is now a big league hitting coach for the Cincinnati Reds, and I'm just tickled that he's got his foot back in the big league door, with the ties he had to Tony La Russa and Walt Jocketty and whatever. He's been able to parlay that into a really couple of great jobs, and of course his latest is in Major League Baseball with the Reds. But Joe burst on the scene in 2007 as a bit of a prospect, but he was really little known. Colby Rasmus was kind of the guy that was getting a lot of the run and a lot of the headlines and what have you. And Joe just burst on the scenes, and Dan can attest to this, but immediately he earned the nickname Joey Bombs, which Joe kind of passed along that some of the guys had called him Joey Bombs. And of course I heard that for the first time, and I immediately became his PR agent. I was like, oh yeah, Joey Bombs, we're running with that on the radio immediately. This is before Johnny Football and, any of those dumb names like Joey Bombs. That was it. And we started selling Joey Bombs t-shirt, and all dude did was hit bombs and make great plays in the outfield. And in 2007, he helped lead us to a first half Texas League North Division crown. He was long since gone by the time we made it to the postseason. But Joe Mather had a stellar 2007 season, and that really, I think, established him on the prospect radar. Wasn't too long after that before he was making diving catches and hitting bombs in St. Louis, taking the Joey Bomb show on the road. So Joe remains a friend to this day. And I would be missing my mark here if I didn't give him a little toot of the horn here during the all-time Springfield Cardinals team presented by Mercy.
Well, I'm not surprised by that pick. I had actually told.
I know you're not.
I'm not either.
Andrew and Kent on our staff.
Guys know the legend. Guys know the legend.
It is the safest pick that was out there. It was just like, all right, well, Linscott is going to pick Joe Mather, and the rest of it we'll figure out. So knew that one was coming. But again, it's a great pick, though. And I think all joking aside that we can talk about it, that yes, you might have picked him because of your man crush on him, but the baseball side deserves it. He was a great here, contributed in the big leagues. And
somebody in the team store thought we should sell Joey Baum's shirts, so I'm not alone there. I mean, we were selling Joey Baum's T-shirts in the Cardinal team store.
We sure did. I was
not alone.
Yes. So great pick on that one. Never saw it coming. Anyway, so Joe Mather fits into the DH utility from Lindskog for the Mercy 15-year team. Jeff, how about you? Who's going to be utility DH selection?
I think mine is not quite as intricate. I didn't meet my wife when I was talking to this particular player, but we were tight and still are to this day. And one that I think a lot of people will recognize, not just for his longevity with the Springfield Cardinals, but just because he was such an outstanding human being. But that's Chris Swagger. Still in the organization now as a manager. He was in Peoria the last time that they were managing, and the last time he played minor league baseball too. So I think he's still in the organization, and I have a feeling that he's going to be on Mike Schilt's staff here in the next couple of years too. He's just an outstanding human being more than anything else. But he had a really good career in Springfield. It spanned 5 years, hit 282, 38 home runs, 40 doubles, had 181 RBIs. But for Chris, what stands out to me was his 2012 playoff run. 2012 was his best year. Had a little taste of AAA at the time, but in 2012, he put the Springfield Cardinals on his back in the first series. Game one, hits 3 homers in one game, and I still think that it's the only 3-homer game in Springfield Cardinals history. I might be stepping out of bounds there, but I'm pretty sure it's still the only 3-homer game, and it happened in game 1 of the playoffs, and I still have my scorebook from said game too, just to prove it. So, and he hit the Springfield Cardinals were down big early, 6-0 going into the 5th inning. He hits a home run and sparks everything. They ended up scoring 3 in the 8th inning to tie the game. And then he hits his 3rd and final home run in the 10th inning. It was a 2-run shot the opposite way. I'll never forget it. So he has a 3-homer game. And then in game 5, he has 2 doubles, scores a run, drives in another run. Team's up 3-1 at that time. Troy Tulowitzki is rehabbing for the Tulsa Drillers, because why wouldn't the Tulsa Drillers have Troy Tulowitzki rehabbing for him for Game 5 of the division series for the chance to go to the championship series in the Texas League? And Swagger lays out for a ball in left center field, lands on his shoulder, makes the catch, snaps his collarbone in half, walks off the field, and never plays again that year. And he was basically the cheerleader for the championship series, which the Cardinals ended up winning the division series against Tulsa, and then going into the championship series and winning it, of course, against Frisco, which had Mike Napoli rehabbing for him too. Why not? But nonetheless, he breaks his collarbone in that Game 5, and just the way that he inspired the team, the way that he was always around the team, being a secondary coach, not just the numbers, but outstanding human being, and a guy that, again, I'm still close with, still talk to, still text message back and forth about, times in 2012 and beyond. But you can't have an all Cardinals team in Springfield without having Chris Swagger on it. And that's kind of where it goes for me, the 3-homer game, the broken collarbone game, and just a superstar human. Chris Swagger's my guy.
Great pick. And I think, when I think of him, you can talk about the baseball, but I think of the word leader. And I think even when he was playing with those guys, he was a leader amongst his peers. He was respected by the staff, respected by the front office staff. He's a leader. And that's why have entrusted him to be their field coordinator now in the minor leagues. But you're right. And every team, there's always those spots for you need stats, but you need leaders. And he's going to fit that bill as a part of this team. And Jeff, thank you for putting him on this team, because you're right. To tell our story, we needed Chris Swagger. So thank you. Andrew, you get it. You get the last spot, the last player selected for the Mercy 15-year team to represent the entire history of the Springfield Cardinals. Of all the names that we've picked, there's so many more that we haven't got to. We know there's more players we'd want, but you have the distinction of making this final selection. No pressure at all, but just make sure to complete our perfect 15-year team presented by Mercy.
All right, no pressure, just don't mess it up. I'm going to go with one of my all-time favorite players that we've had, one of my all-time favorite people that we've had, and add Xavier Scruggs to our 15-year team presented by Mercy. there are three moments in my 7 seasons here that still give me goosebumps and where I could swear this place was shaking down to its core. One was Chris Carpenter's rehab, his final rehab in Springfield in July of 2013. Started the game with a strike against the Arkansas Travelers, and you could, I swear that was the last pitch of the World Series. I mean, the place was going absolutely nuts, which was so cool, especially for somebody not from the area. You know, that was like a real taste of Cardinal Nation for me. Another was 2016, the Home Run Derby, where Luke Voigt won it, beat Matt Chapman. And I mean, again, it just was pandemonium. I was down on the field trying to MC the thing and failing miserably, but Luke bailed me out because it didn't matter what I was saying. You couldn't hear me anyway, with the roar of the crowd. The other was the 4th of July, 2013, our biggest crowd ever, 11,818 fans. Audrey Perez tied the game in the 8th inning with a solo home run. It's 1-1. Corpus Christi was in town. And, you know, the 9th inning of a 4th of July game, everybody's ready for some fireworks. In addition to wanting to see a Cardinals win, everybody just wants to get some fireworks going as well, understandably. So Xavier Scruggs comes up in the bottom of the 9th, hits a walk-off solo home run just inside the left field foul pole. And almost 12,000 people packed in, were just losing their minds. It was so cool. We were wearing our red USA jerseys, which I know everybody's seen the photos of. Those are still some of the best photos in our team's history of the team just, dogpiling on Xavier at home plate. Stands are packed in the background, and it just was such a neat moment. One of many, many home runs that Xavier hit. He is our home run king with 59 career home runs. Also really cool, he tied Stephen Hill with 57 home runs with 2 days left, the third to last game of the 2013 season, which was his last here, and then ended up breaking the record on the last day of the 2013 season with a home run in the 4th inning. And in true Xavier fashion, that wasn't enough. Hit another one in the 8th inning and still has the record by 2 over Stephen Hill with 59 home runs. Went on to of course, play with St. Louis for a little bit, also played with the Marlins, had a great career in South Korea. And what's really neat, if anybody hasn't found this yet, he's got a great podcast going, and he's been calling some of the Korean Baseball League baseball broadcasts as well on ESPN. So he's launched a broadcasting career and is doing a fantastic job on that side of things as well. But Xavier Scruggs, one of the best people that we've had throughout our organization's history, and for my money at least, fitting to be our last addition to the team.
And thank you, all three of you guys. Those last DH utility spots are perfect. I mean, they helped tell our story, and they're all great people. And I think every one of us would be excited if those guys walked through a room and we could socially distance, say hello with masks on. We'd all be so excited. But, I think it really does help finish off this 15-year team and be just absolutely amazing. And before we let you guys go, I would, if you guys have any parting words, it's been so fun to listen to the stories, so fun to see your faces. But I also think it's a really special moment in Springfield Cardinals history to get together our three voices, the people who have been able to tell the story that have made Springfield Cardinals baseball come to life in the Ozarks since 2005. And to have you three together is just so special. And if Mike, if you've got anything you'd like to say to close it out, just really appreciate you being a part of this 15-year final selection show. So anything you'd like to say, Mike?
Well, again, thank you for taking the time to put this together. This has been more fun than I could have ever imagined. When I left Springfield, it was 2009. Social media hadn't quite hit like it is in today's world. And so, there's so many goodbyes and hellos and how you doing and how's things going that I wish I would been able to extend here, over the last 11 years or so that I've been gone. But as we sit here and we talked about all the names and, Andrew dropped a Ned Reynolds and a Dan Lucy and so on and so forth. And I'm thinking about all the great stories and all the memories that come rushing and flooding back, and such special time. And, building that brand from day one in 2005 is something that I wear proudly on my sleeve. And I know you do too, Dan. to be a part of that 2005 season, and then obviously the subsequent years was so special to me personally, and it helped build who I am professionally as well. So many great memories, but to the fans that remember the voice, maybe not so much the face, as I was the radio guy, not the TV guy. But, for those that do remember the voice, thank you so much for your support. And gosh, I wish I could return to Springfield more often and say hello. So, and for everybody else, please stay safe out there. These are crazy times. So wear a mask and stay safe. Be well, everybody.
Excellent. And how about you, Jeff? Anything you'd like to leave with our fans?
No, I'm good. I'm fine.
It was just okay for you.
No, man. To be able to be the bridge between Andrew and Mike I'm the least tenured of this group. But man, my 3 years in Springfield, and my wife and I always say this, that we have never felt more at home than when we lived in Springfield. That was the place where we got engaged. That was the place where we first lived together. We got married when we were in Springfield. It's the place where we felt the most at home, and it was because of the fans and the great people that work in the organization that made us feel that way. But Springfield is a special place. It really is. And had it not been for the opportunity to move up and subsequently to the big leagues, there's a good chance that I'd still be in Springfield, and Andrew would be out of luck. He wouldn't even be. This would be a 2-person panel. But it was an amazing 3 years there, and I still have those great relationships that I had when I was there, which is now 8 years ago, which is hard to believe. But, I stay in touch with Dan's family and some of the other folks that were part of the front office. And I still keep an autographed baseball card of Scott Bales on my desk, just because it's great, and sharing the stories. And it's Springfield's a special place, and it's near and dear to my heart always. Whenever I go back to St. Louis, and I see Matt Gifford, who's running the stadium operations up in St. Louis now, and we get to talk, or some of the people that have gone on from the Springfield front office, the St. Louis front office, and even the players, seeing Matt Carpenter and Mike Schilt and Pop and Brian Eversgerd and all those guys that have come through, it feels like home still. It feels like home. And even though the stadiums are bigger now, the crowds are bigger, the lights are a little bit brighter, Springfield always feels like home. And there's a reason why on an off day in St. Louis, when I could have been sitting in my hotel room and catching up on some show, I rented a car and drove down and wanted to see fans, and I wanted to see Andrew and talk to everybody. And it's a special place, and there's nothing better than Springfield. And I am the only person who has yet to say the 15-year anniversary team sponsored by Mercy. So I'm just glad to be a part of it. So now I finally got in my last pitch, and just honored to be a part of this panel.
Checks in the mail.
Now for me, I'm hosting. That's a part of my radio tryout for the future, is to make
that's right.
I correctly place the different elements of the different partners. And, Mercy on this one, they really went on a limb when we were talking about ideas. And so we really do appreciate, as we joke about saying the Mercy 15-year team.
It's true. Can't do it without sponsors.
You do. And we told them, hey, this is going to be the largest social meeting event we've ever done, to be able to do this from September to now. And they trusted us. And it's been so fun for our fans, for our staff. Specifically Andrew, Kent, TJ, and Matt Turner on our staff. They worked really hard on this program to be able to come up with the ballot, to make the picks, to record it, to deal with all the chaos that goes on behind the scenes, like waving your arms to turn on lights. But it's been so much fun to put this program together with Mercy. And Andrew, I think it's very fitting. You've done so much work on this program, hosting the different events and helping with every single element of this. Any parting words from you before we let everyone go?
Just to kind of echo what Mike and Jeff have said, and I think it's just such a special place with a special history, and it's something that I know I consider it a great privilege to be a part of that. It's no secret, the minor league baseball broadcasting industry is a transient one. Guys bounce around like crazy. So to have 15 years worth of history and have only 3 broadcasters, I think says a lot about how great it is here. Clearly, I think so. Going on 8 years and with no plans, unless Dan has any other news, of going anywhere anytime soon. So it just means a lot to be a part of this group, to be a part of the small little fraternity that the 3 of us have as the broadcasters here. And to get to relive the history on the field through this 15-year team presented by Mercy. Promotion has been really special for me. I've learned a lot about the early years, some stories that even 8 years in that I didn't know, and I've continued to get to enjoy reliving some of the more recent history.
We gave you the keys to the car, Andrew. Thanks for not crashing it all these years, okay?
Yeah, man.
It was a really nice car. Thanks for not crashing it.
So, Mike, Jeff, Andrew, thank you guys so much for being our panelists to make these final selections for the Mercy 15-year team. It's been a great promotion to be able to go through, a great event to be able to relive this history, and to really tell our story. And for me, I've been here, to work with all of you guys. I've been here since the beginning. I've met some amazing people, and I'm very proud to call all three of you friends. And obviously appreciate what you did here as a part of the Springfield Cardinals staff. But I think I'm even more glad to know you guys as people. And I'm excited for us to get together again. We should do this again at some point when it's not
before the 20-year team.
Yeah, there we go. But we'll also get together and tell the stories we can't tell to everyone else. Those are always fantastic in the baseball world. But thank you again to you guys. Thank you to our fans, and thank you to Mercy. We're really excited for our fans to see what the final roster looks like. And so the final roster will be coming out to y'all soon. So thanks again for watching the 15-year team presented by Mercy final selection show. Thanks, everyone.
Love you guys.